Hey guys, so we're going to continue on with some basic typography stuff. Now, when it comes to making like sort of typographical stuff, one thing you can have a couple of different options when it comes to like how you kind of organize the way your sort of design looks. Generally speaking, you tend to either have your stuff kind of centered or like placed along sort of a grid, as it were. We've kind of talked about the importance of like alignment and stuff. The other kind of option you have is to have sort of things sort of extending past the borders of your design. But we're going to do a couple different sort of designs with the sort of opening and closing of our school pledge. We'll just have the phrase "We are Ace." We'll just have that right there. And so we're going to see if we can't shape that to be. First off, let's just going to resize it. So we are Ace. We'll see if we can't have it be a little bit smaller here. Just going to fit this inside. Sort of bouncing around with my sort of screen capture on. But let's look here. We are Ace. Okay, and then we'll just sort of make "we are" the first line and "ace" the second line, have "ace" be big enough to be as wide as "we are," and then you can go down here to the paragraph and just sort of like get your leading down. They call this leading because they used to, when they made the big printing press slates, they used to space out the lines with little pieces of lead. Right? So a little leading here. Okay, in fact, what I'll do is I'm actually going to see if I can't get this to where this will actually touch. Like we want like a little bit of contact between each letter. So let me just sort of draw all this together. So I'll get the just until they I want to make this as compact as possible. I just want always like the briefest of contact between each letter here. So it's negative 80. Can I say negative 81? How about negative 85? All right, I'm looking for that little R and E to connect. That's okay. And then I'll do the same thing with Ace. I'll sort of drag this tracking in a little bit. Maybe get all that. And A and C. The same thing with these guys. These individual letters. All right, that's good. See by itself. Okay, so just whatever font you chose. Mine's called Propaganda, so I forget where I got that one from, but there's this. Okay, cool. All right, that looks good. All right, so with this done, we're gonna make once again. We're gonna make 4 different versions of this. So to start off with, I'm gonna turn this white. And I'll make it semi-transparent. What I'll do is I'll make it big enough to kind of extend past the edges. And so hopefully not so big that it's hard to tell what is being said. Let's see, let's make it bigger than the actual design here. Okay. So we talked before about the Gestalt principles of grouping, and for some reason, whenever I'm moving this, it seems to want to like resize. Put it here. Okay, so bear with me as I'm trying to get this to kind of go around here. Okay, the idea here is that we want to make this big enough to kind of extend outwards from the actual design itself. And I'm going to turn it white, and then I'm going to, so let's get my text tool here, and we'll just sort of select everything and just turn the text white. And then we'll go over to our layers window here and just sort of drag down the opacity to say about maybe 60% or so. Okay. And I'm going to sort of bring this up slightly. I'm going to actually shrink this down. I'm going to shrink everything down a little bit. So I'll shrink down "we are" just so I can see the E a bit better. Good, and then shrink that Ace a little bit more too. I want to see it more. Okay, then I'll just sort of drag all this up a little bit here too. Cool. All right, good. All right, cool. That looks good. All right, so that should. So the whole idea we talk about the principles of grouping. The principles of grouping kind of dictate that, like, you know, the human eye tends to follow things along to their sort of general, like, to their sort of logical conclusion. So we have this right here. This even though we can't see the entire thing, it sort of makes the design look a bit bigger than the borders of the design itself. So if you have a photo of yourself, or something that you took, and you have this like sort of Logan sort of blazing across the top, that's a good sort of method of like trying to make your picture look a bit bigger than it is. So Control Alt Shift E. So you hold down those three buttons and you tap E, and you get you this little copy here. Once again, let's go ahead and click on a group. Call it completed, and then call this Typography 2-1. All right, so I'll just drag this into completed. Yep, and then we'll go ahead. We'll keep this around for a little bit longer. Okay, so let's make a new, duplicate this layer here. So we have layer 0 copy, and let's do this number here. Let's actually turn this totally desaturated by going over here to our image adjustments, hue saturation, and we can just drag our saturation all the way down to nothing. And then, oops, to 0, and then this will turn totally black and white, and we just drag completely down below, and so then I have this all totally white. Okay, so once again, I'll just, I'm actually going to see if I can't, yeah, this is probably good. Okay, so what we can do right here is we can do a couple things. I want to sort of mask out the black and white and have it be revealed inside the letters, and have the colors be a little more visible by having those sort of peer out. So I'm going to do a couple things. I'm going to go here to my layer 0 copy, and I'm going to sort of darken this up a little bit. So let's see, brightness contrast. I'll pull the brightness down some. It'll pull the contrast up a little bit, just so I can, it's kind of clear what we're looking at. All right, and then as far as this one goes, let me just Alt and click in between these layers just to clip that. Okay, and then for this one, I'll brighten this up some. I'll use my levels instead in my saturation. So I'll go to levels, and I'll bring up the shadows. Shadows, not quite so much. Bring down the highlights, brighten those up, brighten up the interior here, and then I'll also touch the saturations as well. A little bit brighter. Trying to make a big difference between the two layers here. Okay, so we bring this guy back. Now, I've got a couple of options on how I can sort of like mask out the We Are Ace from the background here. Let's take a look here. So I'm going to hit this We Are Ace. I'm going to hold down the Control button and click on the little square here that has the letter T. And then you see we have these little marching ants form, these little like selection formed around these little these letters here. And with that done, I'm going to click over here on my layer 0 copy. I'm going to find this little like kind of flag of Japan. So this rectangle with a circle on the side. It says Add Layer Mask. This is a non-destructive method of just sort of like masking away the text. Now it's you can kind of see the We Are Ace kind of hanging out there. Now nothing really changed as far as we're concerned, unless we go over here to We Are Ace and just hit this little stroke there, and then we can kind of get rid of that. Now that's kind of interesting. Now I'm not sure if I'm quite as big a fan of that as maybe if I were to sort of have the opposite version. But what we'll do is this: we'll just Control Alt Shift E, and then I'll create a new, this new version here. I'll call this Typography 2-2. I'll drag this down to my completed folder. And then what we can do, get rid of all this. What we can do here is we can then like go here, just like so say delete the layer mask for now. And then what we can do is we can bring this back up, Control click, Control click on this little box here, and we get all that. And then what we'll do is we'll go to select, and we'll go to select inverse, and so it'll basically select everything but the letters. And then once again, click on this, and then we'll just create a little layer mask here. So then we can use this, and let's make sure we have clipped all of our adjustment layers. Okay, so now we've got the sort of opposite kind of hanging out here. All right, and then we can actually do that same thing, except for what we'll do is this: we'll Control Alt Shift E. Alt Shift E. Okay, maybe. What's happening here? Wait, am I transforming something? Let's see, layer, merge visible. Yeah. I wonder if it's important that I have this here. There we go. Okay, cool. All right, so we'll call this Typography 2-3, and then we'll kind of put this down here in our group that we had before. And then let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of get rid of this layer here. And what we'll do is I'm going to make a new layer right here. Just an empty layer, but press this little button that says, you know, you hold down new layer. And I'm going to go over here to my toolbox, and you might see one of two things hanging out here. If you press G on the keyboard, either this little paint bucket will highlight, or you'll see a gradient tool. And the gradient tool is useful because we can just sort of like create a gradient based on things that we've had before, like this purple and orange is a popular one. If you wanted to choose, and then what you can do is just sort of make this little streak going across, and it'll sort of lay down this purple and orange. In this case, this is set to be a radial gradient. I want to choose a linear gradient, so it'll be a little gradient going across. You can have it like this, or you can have it going across like so, or you can have it going up and down if you'd like. You can choose different colors if you want just to go down here from like foreground to background, and then just double click or just click down here and you can change your colors. I'll change mine to like maybe turquoise and maybe like a pinkish color. Okay. Once again, I can just kind of go through here and just make this turquoise pink. Now, once we have that, I'm just going to take my opacity and just, you know, pull it down a good deal. And so we have this sort of, you know, kind of almost like a, we can almost kind of feel the colors, not so much see them, but almost like it's warming up the colors in different ways. And so what we can do once again, open this up, Control click on the T, and then we have this selected, and then what we can do is we can just sort of click on here and just once again do the layer mask. Actually, I'm going to opposite this. I'm going to do the inverse here. Select inverse. I just edit, and then once again layer mask. And so we take this off. We have this. I actually might shrink this down some. Let me actually Control D, deselect everything. I'm just going to click here. Control N. Alt and Shift, just sort of drag it into the center here. Oops. Did that happen? No. I meant my text. Okay, so I'll shrink this down as best I can. The center. Okay. And then once again, what we'll do is Control click on the T, and then just select inverse. And then we can make a little layer mask here. In this case, I'm going to make this area a little bit more visible, just so it sort of sticks out in sharper relief. Right, and you can even, so for instance here, with this, you can take a look at like this gradient here, and you can sort of shift the gradient some, so I can go adjustment and hue saturation, and I can just kind of click on my hue. It'll actually change the color of like both the purple and whatever it was I used before. You can kind of search through maybe one that might stand out a bit better. So I think this one might work a bit better. You can even like take up the saturation, maybe a little bit darker. All right, so looks good. Okay, so there you go. So once again, Control Alt Shift E, and then we'll just call this Typography 2-4. Drag it down here. And we'll do the same thing we did before. We'll go File, New, and we'll just make a, you know, same old 8x14. And in this case, we don't need to make it nearly as big, but this is just a good starting off point. And then we'll just take this whole group. In fact, we can just take this whole completed group here and just drag it on in and lay it down, and then just, you know, with the group selected, if we just click on the little transform, we can actually just transform the whole group, and so they'll each be the right size. So in this case, I want to make it small enough to where I can have like a 2x2 grid, and then here I can just sort them out. So just right, and so we can kind of see a few of the, it's the same essential text, oops, but we've sort of changed the way it looks compared to one side and the other. This is probably good enough to just apply. Just gonna drag this down here. Gotta get a little margin going on. Image crop. And once again, put our title and our name. We'll call this Typography 2. We'll make it quite so big. I'll change my font here to something like 20th century and make it around like 72 pixel points or so. And so Typography 2. Make it not white. Reset my. We'll want to reset our leading and our different settings here. Let's put our names. Just about done. Cool, we got ourselves a little finished design here. I like it. All right, so once again, we're looking for 4 of these little designs here just to kind of show how you can just affect the way that the text looks in subtle ways that will kind of enhance the way the message is being conveyed. All right, so this is just a fun little way of using layer masks and a couple of other things. All right, well, can't wait to see you guys produce. See you in class. So this is a JPEG. Very neat.